Bob had befriended Brent Crawford during a chance pairing on the golf course in 1998. And when he returned to Central Ohio, the two men partnered to purchase a 252-unit apartment community called Gateway Lakes in 2002. That was the start of Crawford Hoying Development. Within 10 years, the pair grew their partnership into a full-service real estate company, managing over 20 apartment communities and over 1 million square feet of commercial real estate, as well as one of the largest single developments in Central Ohio, Bridge Park in Dublin, Ohio. Bob guides the company's $500 million in new developments, including land acquisition, property due diligence, and closing requirements, as well as negotiating with the city on their requirements. And when he's not doing all that, he's running all over the place, being directly involved with all of his kids, all of his 4 children's sports and school activities. So he's a busy guy. So I'm very thankful that he had time to join us today. Please join me with a warm Rotary welcome for Bob Hoying.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Very excited to be back here. I've lived in Columbus really since the late 90s. I never went away. When I came to school here in the early 90s, when I got drafted by the Philadelphia Eagles, I bought a place in the short north and lived there for 3 years and always returned here in the off season to train, so never really left. I grew up in St. Henry, Ohio. It's a small little town, northwest part of the state. Very lucky to have great mom and dad who are still very active. My dad is still very active in our construction part of our business. Went on to Ohio State, played, I like to tell people that have kind of forgot about the early 90s. I was the quarterback when Eddie George won the Heisman, and I used to have blonde hair. So that's were some of the best times of my life were at Ohio State, and had the good fortune of having some great coaches growing up, and went on and got drafted by the Philadelphia Eagles, traded to the Oakland Raiders 3 years into my career, and spent the last 3 years out there playing for John Gruden, who is probably the most demanding coach I've ever had to play for. Through that time, I met Brent, my partner, Brent Crawford, on the golf course. What Paul didn't tell you is Brent almost ran me down and ended my NFL career that day of golf. He really did. So, yeah, could have turned out a lot differently. But I met Brent, and what I was looking for in my career was, I was drafted in the 3rd round. Nothing's guaranteed, especially in football. So I didn't know how long I was going to play or get to play football, so I was looking for something to do right after my career would be over. And Brent was just selling some of his student housing at Ohio State. We're the same age, and we started looking at apartments together. And I'm fast forwarding through that time and giving you the short version, but we ended up, every time I came home in the off season the next few years, I got my real estate license, got more and more active in building our business. And really at the beginning, it was all about how many apartments can I buy and not ever have to work again and play golf the rest of my life. And that was never going to happen. So, I just kept getting more and more involved in it. We bought my dad's construction company about 14 or 15 years ago. And we do some work outside of our own development now. We were, at the beginning, strictly a GC, third-party construction company, but we do about half in-house now and half still for others in this market. So that's a little bit about us. We're currently based in our new project, Bridge Park, in Dublin. We moved to Dublin in 2004 and have been there ever since. We have, including the construction company, about 200 employees and great space in Bridge Park. Some of our recent projects here locally, some of you probably know some of these. The Lane was our first really big mixed-use project that we did as a company. Was very successful. We started working on this project at the height, or really at the 2011-12 when it wasn't very good. We were still at the downturn. There wasn't anything happening. People thought we were crazy. Even if we could get this project approved, how could we finance it and get it built? So this was the first one. We took really an old church site that had to be moved. It's plus or minus 3 acres, and we did a hotel, 108 apartments, about 20,000 square foot of commercial space, and Obviously, Cameron Mitchell has Hudson 29 there. It's been very successful and leased up very well for us. The Heights is a smaller project over in Worthington. We took a underutilized 2-acre piece of parking lot next to the shops at Worthington Place Mall, and we did a couple hundred apartments and some office space as well. Water Street's a big project for us over in the Dayton area. If you'd have told me 5 or 6 years ago that we'd be developing in Dayton, I would have said you're crazy. But there's really been pent-up demand. There's actually job growth over there. We have what we feel are some of the best real estate over there in and around Fifth Third Field. We've done a couple hundred apartments, a 50,000 square foot office building that's fully leased now. We did a historic tax credit deal. And just finished that. We took an old GM plant where Charles Kettering had his offices and converted it to 130 loft apartments and a brewery restaurant on the first floor. So very excited about that. We're working on some other stuff in Dayton as well. This is a project down in the short north where the old Haiku restaurant used to exist. We actually just started this project, and there's a big hole if you get down there. We have one of the best restaurants from the Cleveland area that has wanted to be in the short north. It's going to be an anchor town hall. They'll be our restaurant, and they'll actually do the rooftop bar and restaurant. 45,000 square foot of Class A office, and we have a Moxie Hotel by Marriott, and should be finished with that project in summer of 2019. Bridge Park. So that's a big project that we've been working on in Dublin. Was started about 6 or 7 years ago when we started acquiring property, and very challenging. And I can maybe just shoot ahead here. This is what Bridge Park looks like, or had looked like back in the early 2000s. You basically have the core of Dublin that virtually went unchanged for 30 years. I only go back to 2003, but it certainly didn't look too much differently before that. What's unique about this property is it's bordered to the north by 270. You have the historic Scioto River. You have Old Dublin in the lower left. I think I have a pointer here. I don't know if that works. Down here is where you have the historic core. You have 161 east-west, and you have Riverside Drive north-south. So from a real estate side of things, we couldn't be a better piece of real estate. And when we started visiting, really we were coming out of the Lane Avenue project down in Upper Arlington, and we were looking for some next projects, and we had tied up a different piece of property in Dublin. And the folks at Dublin said, "Don't do it over here. If you want that dense mixed use redevelopment, look into the Bridge Street district." They were just changing a lot of their zoning in Dublin that allowed for this dense mixed-use development. You can see it's just a spaghetti of streets back in 2014. You have Dale Drive, which loops this way, and then Tuller Ridge, which loops this way. Here today, this is from 2016. On the right-hand side, you can see a grid of streets that's going in. The roundabout in the lower right was done, and we'll talk about that as part of the city projects that they did. But it was all about, an urban grid of streets, connectivity. There's an iconic pedestrian bridge that's going in right now and is really symbolic of allowing the core of Dublin to grow. This is what it looked like before. It was an underutilized retail center. Many of you probably have driven by it over the years. When we bought it, it was about 40% occupied. And then it started acquiring more and more pieces over about the next year and a half to 2 years. This is what it looks like today, and really everything future that we're working on. And I can tell you that a big part of the reason that we've had success is the City of Dublin has really stepped up in a meaningful way with a public-private partnership. We could have not done any of these projects without their help. You have, like I said before, this roundabout. Part of the reason this center died over the years is there was no left turn as you were coming east across the river, and it really killed this center. This was the old Bash driving range right here to the north. So we were able to buy a large part of this land up here from Mr. Al Vrabel, who did the assisted living center up here, senior housing. and then we owned this center over here. Bridge Park West, we had picked up about 7 acres. Over here, we did a smaller project. These are 41 higher-end condos. We've sold all but one. Pretty much High Street down to the river falls off a cliff. So what we did is we did a parking garage. We did a 4.5, 5-level parking garage, and we wrapped it with higher-end condos, residential condos. Everybody, what's unique about this property is everybody has their own private 2-car garage inside of the garage. So that's kind of unique to this market. You can see the pedestrian bridge, how it jumps across and really is connecting. This is about halfway through development right now, and the bridge will be final in summer of 2019. Other projects is they moved Riverside Drive up to the east and created Riverside Park, or a new park system on both sides of the river. So the old Riverside Drive used to exist down here toward the river's edge, and this will be programmed. I actually have some images that are really cool later in the slide. We've started, flip ahead here, this is the leasing plan. I apologize for those in the back that can't see this very well. We started with Block C, and how we went about this with the City of Dublin is there were about 50 versions of Bridge Park master plans over about a 2-year period with our consultants and architects. It really was an extensive process to get to this point. We settled on this, and we're very happy with it. But what allowed us to do is we have blocks of development. So this is C block. We started that first, and then about 6 months later, we started B block. This is about 2 years ago. And then we started A block about simultaneous with B. But as we developed with the mixed-use nature of this development, really each block has its own parking garage. So like Block C has over 800 spaces. Block B has over 800 spaces. This is about 600 in A. And it supports its use for that block. So as we develop, as market changes, one thing that's really surprised us is how well all the office space is leased for us. We're out of office space. We've leased 98%. We have a couple little fill-in spaces, but we are out of office, and we made the mistake of not having any available because it really got leased so fast. We are doing an office building, an 80,000 square foot building right here in Block A. That will be available later next year. We think we have about half of that leased with some deals that we're working on right now. So with the mixed use nature, it is complicated. It's not as easy as going out in the suburbs and just building stick-built apartments. It's not that at all. It's very complicated. Not only do you have a mix of uses horizontally, but a lot of times vertically in our buildings, we have a mix of uses where the first level is typically restaurant or retail. Second floor is office space typically, and then above that is residential apartments or condos. The reason, I think, if you look at the success of the Short North, of Grandview, of some of the other markets in town, especially during the downturn, the values held up the best, Upper Arlington. And it's kind of, this is what that development looks like. You know, it's dense, it's mixed use, it's walkable. So whenever we are looking for projects that we want to do, and really all the examples that I showed is it's infill, it's redevelopment sites, it's walkable to other amenities in the area. And for the first time in history, you have the baby boomers that are selling their homes and want different housing options than just the half-acre lot on a golf course in Dublin that we have so many of up there. And a lot of our baby boomers in Dublin are selling their homes and they want other housing options. And for the longest time, we didn't have that up in Dublin. You just, if you wanted a high-rise or mid-rise condo, you had to come to Grandview Yard, or you had to come downtown to find that. So a lot of people, almost 40 out of the 41 that have bought or purchasing our condos on the west side of the river are all from Dublin area or the immediate northern suburbs. So those were likely people that would have come down here. So I think from Dublin's standpoint, it was all about providing other options for all their baby boomers that, you know, will sell their homes over the next 10 to 20 years. Also, you have the millennials. So whenever we released our apartments at the beginning, almost all of them were leased early on by empty nesters. And as soon as we started opening up office spaces, then the millennials started leasing. And right now, you kind of have the baby boomers and the millennials, and that's who's really leasing our apartments. We've turned over apartments at different points of time, but we lease about 5 to 8 a week, and that was through the winter, and so leasing has been very strong. Here's some of the tenants that we have. We're working on a handful of deals that we have not announced yet. It's gone incredibly well, better than what we had ever hoped at Bridge Park. And you can see some of the names there that are some of our tenants. This is an interesting project. So if I back up real quick, if you look at F Block, we've been working on an interesting concept in a multi-purpose athletic facility called Bridge Park Center. And really what it is it's a facility that has 8 basketball courts that can be converted to 12 or 14 volleyball courts. I think some of us that have had kids, I know my sisters played volleyball, and I went to the convention center, and plenty of times you see how many sports families that make it here on a given weekend. But the concept is local use during the week up in Dublin. Our rec center is about 25 years old, and there needs to be additional facilities. A lot of our school-age kids get shut out of facilities to use. We pitched this to the Ohio Basketball Hall of Fame, and they are going to locate their physical museum in our atrium, which we think is really cool. And actually, I think we have a short video. I'll just play.
I think the location here for Bridge Park is both unique and a tremendous asset to the city of Dublin. The main reasons that this is important for Dublin City Schools would be twofold. One, so that our younger students who are in the DYA programs can have more access to venues here in Dublin. Right now we're really overcrowded, and oftentimes student participation is limited because of that. We're also excited about the potential for our graduation ceremonies to relocate here. Currently that's at OSU, and having that back in Dublin just brings us so many benefits. Also, just the impact of after graduation. A lot of our families like to go out and celebrate, to have lunch together, and all of the restaurants, I think, will really benefit from that as well.
You know, it's an example of some of the events that might come to this kind of facility is a basketball tournament, for example. A tournament over the weekend might draw 100 plus teams, 2,000 or so visitors. And you know, those visitors are looking to go to restaurants, they're looking to shop, they're looking to spend money here in the city of Dublin. You know, more than just attracting youth events, I think we really can attract events that really suit the mature population as well. You know, things like pickleball, badminton, all kinds of other events as well. And I think, you know, trying to lure those more than just sports. I think there's a lot of events and trade shows we can attract that may work in tandem with the new event center, which will be right next door to this facility. So the opportunities are immense beyond just youth athletics.
Well, the Ohio Basketball Hall of Fame originally thought they were going to build a museum to house the Hall of Fame inductees, and that portion of it never really became reality. And I think this building is centrally located in the state of Ohio, and being new, I can't imagine a better place to call home than a place where they actually play basketball. And you'd have youth playing there constantly. You could sponsor high school games, high school tournaments, things of that nature. And the Ohio Basketball Hall of Fame would love to call it their home.
So that's it's been a fun one for me to work on. Let's go back to that part there. We actually went out and commissioned an economic impact study. University of Cincinnati did that for us. We've actually been working on this project for about a year now. We've kept it as much as we can under wraps, but recently we submitted to the state of Ohio for the state capital budget, and we were awarded officially $1 million last week. So that was huge for our project. Still a long way to go, but we have an interesting, a few interesting tools to us as a developer. We have a new community authority. We also have TIF revenues. We have sponsorship sales. We've had great conversations with 3 local Dublin-based companies. We would all know their names about being the naming sponsor in a meaningful way with this facility. So we're making progress. But back to the economic impact study, it's over $800 million of impact over the next 20 years and about an average of 35,000 hotel room nights to the immediate area. And so that's pretty powerful, and we just think as far as driving traffic to Central Ohio, to Dublin, and our project, obviously, with it being in the heart, makes a lot of sense for us. So this has been a fun one, given my background to work on especially. I'll just finish here and I'll open up to questions. These are some of the latest renderings released by the City of Dublin. As I said before, the Scioto River is so underutilized in a lot of parts of town, but especially in Dublin over the years, that this has really been able to unlock the potential of what this park on both sides of the river will be. And this is on the east side, the East Plaza, where there'll be a pavilion. You can see this is the west side. So the lower left is where Cameron Mitchell is doing the Avenue Steakhouse. Will be right here. You'll have the west landing, and then you can see the pedestrian bridge that connects both sides. And then this is a shot in the wintertime. There'll be an ice rink in the plaza, in the park, and in this building here, the ability to do concerts, outdoor concerts in the park. So we're obviously very excited, and I think that's the end. So about that project, it's been an awesome project to work on. There's not a lot of those. We still do really small projects. We've done some smaller projects in the Clintonville area recently. Not everyone's like Bridge Park. We never set out to do a project that big. It just kind of happened over time. We were able to put some pieces together. So it's one we're really proud of, and we're just trying to get it all finished before the world changes again. So, but I'll open up to any questions. If anybody has any questions for me, I'd be happy to answer them.
I could have about a dozen questions. I share your excitement about your new career because it's pretty awesome stuff you're doing. That's great. I'm going to try to sneak in 2 questions. I have to ask you about your football and also what your degree is in from Ohio State. But what's your favorite pro memory? Because I don't know much about your pro career.
Yeah, I got a degree from Ohio State in production operations management in the business school. So didn't know it's kind of an all-purpose degree where you can go do anything afterwards. I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do. My favorite memory as a pro is probably beating Boomer Esiason. I started the second half of my second year in Philadelphia. I threw for 4 touchdowns, and we had a come-from-behind victory against Boomer, who was a guy that I grew up watching up in St. Henry early in his career. So he was at the tail end of his career, and we drove it down at the end of the game, kicked the field to win the game, and beat him. So that was pretty awesome.
I realize it's not the developer's responsibility, but is anybody looking at the congestion on the roads that connect Dublin with Columbus?
You want to repeat the question?
Yeah, I guess the congestion of the roads that connect Dublin to the lights on Riverside, or what?
Riverside from Dublin to Columbus.
Yeah, I'll just go back real quick, and you'll at least see in this shot here. One thing I did not point out, and it's due to the congestion and the traffic, is that, before you had no turning capability at this intersection here. Now you actually have a roundabout, and you can go all 4 ways. This Bridge Park Avenue extension is actually in. It takes you all the way up to Sawmill Road. We actually did a land swap, and we actually put that in privately and dedicated it back. For some of the land swaps that we had in here. We thought this was important for us and for our development to have connection up to Sawmill Road. There's a future John Shields Parkway Bridge that will go in probably over the next 5 to 7 years as this development happens. which will hopefully serve as a bypass to Old Dublin and further help with the congestion. I can tell you, as it relates to the Bridge Park Center and the ability to have 4,000 person events, is we have an agreement in place with Wendy's International that's allowing us to use their parking lot at night, and on the weekends it's up to 850 spaces that are available to us. They've been a great partner and supporter of our projects as well. So I can't really speak to any of the other projects or the road congestion along the way, but I know that we're trying to do everything we can. And then you have this grid of streets that's in here as well that helps. Yeah.
Carrying on to the congestion, I'm a resident up there. There's probably one traffic accident in that circle a week. I'm scared to death of the parking spots that are right in front of the restaurants. People are going by there at 35, 45 miles an hour. I think somebody's going to get killed there. I don't mean to put big negative on the whole subject. I like the development and all that. I'm scared to death. We avoid that circle, and we, like I said, we live there.
Yeah, and I think you're not the first time we've heard that. So, yeah, and those I think people are getting more used to it. I know that they're going to enhance this area right here with a right-only turn. I think a majority of the accidents, from what I know, happen right down here with traffic that's coming this way, and they're going to give them a dedicated turn lane to go east. That's certainly going to help. I think as people use it more and more, they get more accustomed to using that. I think the traffic, I think the speed along Riverside Drive is going to come down even further. I think it's at 35 right now. But I think it's even going to come down further as more development happens. So we share the same concerns that you do.
It's that busy now, and you're talking about, what, 40% growth in that area?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think as we get as we build out the project, you'll continue to see that the speed comes down with the roads that go around Bridge Park. I know for us, not having the ability to go left here just killed this retail center. So I think a lot of this, even though it's not perfect, has certainly gone a long way to fixing some of the problems.
I think it's a great project. I love it. It's adding a lot. I live up north of it, up in Wedgwood. I think it's been great. So I wish you could do it quicker to bring in more stuff. So I think it's great. One question I have is, will they eventually put a exit off of 270 down to Riverside? I heard some talk about that at one time, and I don't know if they can physically.
I don't think there's been any meaningful meetings on that subject. I've seen renderings of what could take place, but I think we're still years away from that happening. I think we all recognize that when everybody's trying to get to the zoo on Sawmill, that exit needs fixed, needs help. So I'm not sure exactly how that happens, though. Yep.
I recognize that the southeast corner of that intersection isn't yours, but any idea what's going to happen to the Montgomery Inn?
We actually own that. I did not mention that. We bought that a couple years ago. So yeah, we have the ability to do more development out here at the roundabout. We would envision more of a corporate headquarters. Here we've laid out a couple different plans. Something to anchor the roundabout with the AC Marriott here. So that's down the road. That center, is doing great. We're in the high 90s of occupancy. Really, Montgomery Inn, when we knew they wanted out before we bought it. So, but Montgomery Inn may or may not stay there long term, the building, just depending on what happens here at this corner. So, but that center right now is performing very well.
Do you have any more plans for hotel space, especially with the play and stay? You talk about families and.
Yep, we do. Right here, we've been awarded. We've been awarded a Spring Hill Suites by Marriott right here, and we're just trying to gauge when we'd like to start those simultaneous with the arena. We may or may not do the hotel on its own, but we do feel, because of how this is performed, we want to get another probably 8 to 12 months in on seeing performance of the AC. That ADR is a little higher, so Spring Hill Suites obviously will bring a little bit lower nightly rate, and also offer suite hotel for the traveling families and trade shows and that sort of thing that can happen here. So, but yeah, that's definitely in our plans to do another hotel.
Follow-up question. You bring up the baby boomers and the millenniums. Do you have any plans for Generation Xers, or we're just sort of just not?
Well, yeah, Xers are across the board because, yeah, Crawford, my partner, is 1 year. He's only 1 year older than me. He's already an empty nester. You know, his kids are gone. They had kids early. I still have 4 under the age of 15, and my youngest is 6. So, you know, I'm not probably going to live in a development like this anytime soon, just with having the kids and wanting a yard. But, you know, I think with this projects like this, they give people options. You know, where Dublin, I said it before, in the past has really had no other options other than single-family homes. You know, I know for CEOs, they're looking for places like this to locate their businesses so they can attract the best talent, millennial talent that wants to be in vibrant, walkable areas. So, you know, it was very strategic for Dublin to, you know, and I think the one thing to keep in mind, Bridge Street District in general is less than 6% of the total land mass in all of Dublin. So it's a very concentrated area, part of the city. They certainly don't want this across the entire city. It's just in this focused area. And I think you're going to see more and more Westerville. You're going to see a lot of the suburbs. They'll go to their own core, and it'll be like kind of spokes on a wheel, where you have it kind of around Columbus, where you'll have more dense, walkable stuff. It probably won't be as big as Bridge Park. We had a very unique opportunity here with land assemblage, but you're going to see pockets like this, and I would consider what we did in Upper Arlington, you know, a miniature version of what we are doing at Bridge Park. So I think you're just going to continue to see this type of development into the future.
I was wondering about, you mentioned the parking garage piece in terms of your development, which is spectacular, by the way, and I'm not a Dublin resident, but with the autonomous cars coming ahead and Dublin being a focus with Ohio University and that 7-mile stretch with autonomous testing already, did you and your planning, your team, put together some numbers with your parking garages? We have had some garages built here in Columbus downtown that we're not able to convert. Right. They're almost brand new.
We can convert most of our offices to either office space or retail space in the future. I think one of the hardest things that we do is it all starts with parking, no matter what the use is. In any deal that you're looking at, what can you park today? And nobody has a crystal ball to say what Uber, Lyft, self-parking cars are going to do to our parking garages in the future. And what are you going to do with the parking garages if and when you don't need them? So I know in almost every one of our cases and our projects that you've seen up on the screen, we feel like we're overparked. You know, we've built too much parking, but it's still a requirement. You still have to be able to park cars, and so we're constantly analyzing that and trying to think about what you can do. You know, the other thought is, can you go vertical on top of a parking garage someday? You know, that's another idea, and other developers are planning garages that way. But the hard thing is it costs money. You know, if you're going to design a garage that way, it drives up the current cost today, and how do you pay for it? So those are the challenges that are ahead of us.
One more question.
This is not a plan. I'm not a planted question. Having said that, could you tell us about the pass that ended the Purdue game?
I cannot. I don't think so. No. Yeah, I'm not sure I'm the person that needs to comment on that. But yeah, so thank you very much. I really appreciate you having me down here, and great to see everybody.
Congratulations. Thanks. Well, congratulations, Bob, on the success of Crawford Hoying and also on the Bridge Park District. We appreciate you coming here today. Now, next weekend, or next Monday, I hope you're all coming again, because we're going to hear from Matt McCoy. He is the sports director for Iheartradio. Iheartradio manages 7 radio stations here in the local area, including WTVN 610 and 105 The Zone. Besides being sports director, Matt is also the host of the Afternoon Sports Talk. So he's going to be here just in time to talk about the NCAA's March Madness bracket. So come come on back for that and bring some people to visit. We'll see you then. Thank you.